Hi everyone, it's Melissa from Special Ed Law Mom, and today I'm coming to you to talk to you about extended school year services. Now, it is June 4th of 24 here at my house. I don't know when you will be watching this video, but hopefully it's helpful for you if you're in the middle of wondering what the heck am I going to do with my kid all summer, or in the future if that issue comes up for you. So, I wanted to come on and talk to you about extended school year and then maybe share a story or two of what happened to us with it. So, this is I call this my Bible, Special Ed Law by Pete Wright. I have told families if you cannot afford to hire an advocate, if you simply cannot, this is the book to buy. I know different people have different opinions. I recently looked on eBay. You can get this for, at least at this time, for $10 and under for a used copy. I have links, Amazon links below. I get a small portion. It doesn't change your price on Amazon, but I have links below if you decide to buy a new copy. I can tell you, I bought this book when my kids were little. I think I paid like $25 for it. It has been a lifesaver. I have pulled it out in IEP meetings. I have used it continually when I have ever sorry, use it continually whenever I have needed to know something. It has a great glossary in it. I got this weird hair thing going. Has a great glossary or way to find topics in it in the back. Great book. But so today I want to talk to you about ESY. So, what is extended school year services? It in a nutshell, ESY is meant to help students during the summer so they have consistency of an education. There are some kids that without having education in the summer going for 2 or 3 months, they have regression. And so many of the things that they learn in this during the school year, they make progress and then they fall behind. And then you spend months starting again at the start of the next school year trying to get those skills back. So, extended school year is set up to provide services to kids in the summer. And out of this book, it says that each public agency, this is in section of IDEA 34 CFR, so 34 Code of Federal Regulations 300.106. Each public agency must ensure that extended school year services are available as necessary to provide FAPE. And they must be provided if an IEP team determines on an individual basis in accordance with IDEA requirements um, that this would be how FAPE would be provided to the child. And they may not limit ESY to particular categories of disabilities or unilaterally limit the type, amount, or duration of those services. Um, and it says that extended school year means special ed and related services are provided to a child with a disability beyond the normal school year in accordance with the child's IEP and at no cost to the parents or the child, and they meet the standards of the state education agency. Okay, so in a nutshell, what does that mean? Basically, if your kid is going to have issues or they need help in the summer, then the IEP team needs to meet and decide that and provide extended school year services. So, what I have typically seen is there is a portion on the IEP documents. A lot of schools use the electronic format now. There's an area where they can check a box. The student needs ESY, they don't need ESY, whatever. Ironically, what happens is the schools will mark don't need ESY no matter when that IEP is taking place. And so you could have an IEP in September. Let's say your annual meeting is in September, and they're going to mark in September that your kid doesn't need ESY. Well, ESY, most schools operate until May or June. So ESY is usually in the summer. And so, how do they know in September, December, January? even March if your kid is going to need ESY or not. So, the first thing I would say to you is if you go into an IEP meeting and they have marked that your student doesn't need ESY on that IEP draft or document, you need to say to them, this is too premature to decide this, and we need to decide this closer to the time. Now, that leads me to my next thing. The other thing that you would find, or that we found, is that a lot of times we would be told at the end of the school year, right when school's about to end, if our child is eligible for ESY or not, especially when they were little. And we would get a notice like in May before I knew even better, usually 1 to 2 weeks before school was going to get out, if our child was eligible for ESY. That doesn't work for a variety of reasons. Number one, it's an IEP team decision, not an administrative decision. So there should have been an IEP team meeting to discuss it. You shouldn't just be notified. Number two, at least in my state, which is Utah, there is actually a rule in the Utah Special Education Rules that says that ESY has to be determined early enough in the school year. So not in September for June, but early enough in the school year that the parents can exercise their procedural rights if they disagree with the decision. So, what does that mean? Let's say they come back and tell you that your kid isn't eligible for ESY. Well, if you don't know that until April or May, due process can take 90 days, 120 days, whatnot, in order to file and complete if you wanted to file due process for ESY. State complaints take 60 days to complete. And so, therefore, we calculated in our school or our area that based upon that Utah rule, the ESY needed to be determined by March. And what did that mean? We would need to have a meeting by February so that we knew the outcome of the school system. Because, a lot of times they want to reconvene or whatever. We needed to know the decision by the school system in order to know if we had to exercise our procedural rights. And so we began requiring that in our IEP that it was written that ESY would be determined by March 1st every year. And that put them on notice that they better darn well have a good reason for denying ESY, or we had time to exercise our procedural rights and write a state complaint or whatever and have ESY ordered. Um, so that is what extended school year is. Now, they cannot base it only on regression. A lot of times schools will say, well, Johnny won't have a problem. And so we're just going to base this decision only on regression. They cannot do that. And for the life of me, at the moment of filming this video, I can't remember the other criteria. But as soon as I have finished filming this, I will put the other criteria below that they have to consider. I don't know why I can't remember and why I didn't make a note. Sorry. But they can't limit it to only regression. They also can't limit it to only a set amount of time. So in our school system, we found when our kids were little that they would usually have a total of 4 weeks of ESY, and they would have 2 weeks um, I want to say like early July. So the kid would have had a month out of school because we get out typically May, at the latest, the very 1st of June. So the kid would typically have a month of nothing. And then they'd have 2 weeks of ESY that were only 4 days a week and only 2 hours a day. And then they would do another 2 weeks, like either the end of July or the first part of August. So they had these gaps in time where the kids had nothing, and it was all predetermined what it was going to be and when it was going to be. And so I actually filed a state complaint at one point and said, you can't predetermine that. And I'm sorry, the excuse I would get is, well, we can't find the staff that wants to work. Not my problem. This isn't about your staffing issues. This is about fate for my kid. And so I actually got it to where they had to adjust their schedule so that there was more consistency, because these big gaps of time, what was that doing? for anyone. It wasn't doing anything. Um, there was also one point when it said that it has to be free to the child. There was one point where lovely preschool director, and you know who you are in Jordan District, in probably 2004, you sent out a memo telling parents they needed to donate money for snacks to give to the kids. I'm sorry. I went to the special ed director and said, What about free and appropriate public education? And where is the money going that this person is asking for? Is it going in the general fund or is it going in their vacation budget for themselves? This is ridiculous. It's crazy to me what people try and do. There was one year, I believe, and it gets to the point, like with my kids, it got to the point where there wasn't the benefit with ESY. Um, they didn't want to go, or the kids that they were with were at a little bit lower function than they were. And so they ended up being like the teacher for the kids, and they had to ride on a hot bus, they had to get up early. They were just like, Mom, do we have to do this? And so you may choose to not do ESY. Or maybe you have a vacation planned and the dates don't work with your vacation and you turn it down, and you have every right to do that. But it is required to be made available if the IEP determines that it's part of FAPE for your child. They will tell you that they're going to look at regression. And what that means is they want to look if your child loses skills. And sometimes that can be a behavior issue as well. And they'll look at how well your child recovers after coming back from Christmas break or fall break or whatever. But they can't use only that criteria, they have to use other things. And again, I'll put the info down below. They also like to use this to make up for services. So let's say they didn't have speech services for your kid because they didn't have a speech therapist, or the speech therapist just didn't help your kid or was delayed in helping your kid or whatnot. They like to say, oh, we'll give them speech during ESY. No, ESY is not a form of compensatory education. Compensatory education is to make up for what they missed, what they screwed up on, what they did not provide. ESY does not do that. ESY is to help provide a continuation of services during the summer. Um, there's also, I'm going to plan to do a video about how you can get your school system to pay for private services. But there was one year um, that I'll do in a special ed story time. I already did a story time. If you haven't seen that, it talks about when FAPE is required for private and publicly funded programs. Um, but there was another time that we got them to pay for services that they simply didn't want to offer during ESY. So I'll do a story time about that. Um, the ESY is a critical thing. Now, if you're sitting here and it's summertime or close to summer or you're approaching that, and none of these things happened, there was no dialogue, they just checked the box that your kid didn't need this and, have a nice summer, contact me, because we can simply write a letter to them, let them know that your rights were violated with ESY, and that there was no IEP team decision, that your rights were violated, and that you're going to pursue private services and expect them to pay for them. Now, you have to do this before the bills start racking up on those private services. And I'm going to do a separate video on how you structure that letter. Most of the time, if it comes from an advocate, you might get better results than coming from mom, because sadly they don't always listen to mom. I'm gonna do a separate video on that, maybe right after this. But contact me because I can send that letter. We have to give them 10 days notice that they screwed up, that they didn't discuss with you, and therefore you're pursuing services on your own. And then you pursue those services and then you send them a bill, and hopefully you'll get reimbursed. I've done it in the past, it's worked. So if you found any value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up, a like, put a comment down below. It helps the channel. Subscribe, share my channel with other people. I am trying to provide as much free content as I can because I really do want to help you. I'm a nationwide advocate. Lawyers hire me to help them. I can help you. I get results. I can be the heavy because I know a lot of moms and dads either don't know what to say or don't want to be the bad guy. I can do that for you, and my fees are really reasonable, and I get results for people. I can't promise you that, but I know the law well. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I certainly would love to try and help you. So reach out to me at specialeducationlawmom@gmail.com. I can do a free 30-minute intake to see if I can help you, and then we can go from there. And until next time, make it a great day. Thanks. Bye.